Welcome, everybody, to the news segment. St. Patrick's Day 2023. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. I'm here with my co-host, folks. It's an original crew show tonight with Nick. Nick, what are you drinking?
I just cracked open another Guinness.
There you go.
Dan, what about you?
Still working on the Speedway Stout and refilled up on the old Scottish Ale.
Yeah.
For myself, from Ascension, which is a rarity for me, but I've got their Hail Mary Premium Lager, as I'm still finishing up the NA, the Partake Pale Ale. But with always this segment too, we always go through the news. First, I want to say thank you so much to those that are listening live. Of course, I know it is St. Patrick's Day, so you're all probably either drunk or getting ready to go to bed. But thank you so much for following us on Twitch. We did have a couple new followers during the first segment. That's twitch.tv/Better on Draft. Of course, we are live 7:15 p.m. Eastern Fridays. So make sure to stay tuned to Better on Draft to see if we're off that week or if we're on. Come join us live, chat with us live, talk about the topics that we're talking about live, including the topic that I'm going to bring up first here for the craft beer news. And that is that craft beer, for the top 30 brands, most are currently declining in popularity, both in money sold as well as volume sold. We talked a few weeks ago about the craft beer bubble being a myth. I've talked about nothing really being able to hurt craft beer, but really when you're looking at volume in comparison to other brands like Rheingeist are up double digits, whereas brands like New Belgium's Voodoo Ranger is down nearly 1/3, which is a huge amount as it is one of the top selling brands in the country, one of the top 30 brands of craft beer. But with that in mind, if you look at, say, Juice Force Hazy IPA, which is another Voodoo Ranger brand, they're up 7 times. So we're looking at these brands, and a lot of people are leaving brands for other brands. So Juice Force Hazy is coming up. Their Ranger Hoppy Variety Pack is up 20%. Their Imperial IPA is up 6.3%. And that's to account for, say, their Ranger IPA, just their standard Voodoo Ranger IPA down 1/3. Juice Haze IPA, so not Juice Force, Juice Haze, two different things apparently, is down 10% as well. When you're looking at these numbers, for the most part, craft beer is owned by non-craft beer breweries. So the top 30 brands that aren't your Bud, Busch, Coors, Miller also include Kona's Big Wave, which is owned by AB, Goose Island's Double Dry Hopped Double IPA, which of course is AB, Leinenkugel, which is owned by Molson Coors, Lagunitas, which is owned by Heineken. So when you look at all of these brands, and that still the top brands are these beers, but breweries like Rheingeist are increasing, do you think we can see not necessarily a change in the guard, as we're seeing brands for Anheuser-Busch drop significantly to where a lot of people are kind of making fun of them, which is fair, for purchasing these brands? Do we see any craft breweries kind of hopping into those top tiers with the beers that we're selling? Because honestly, I don't think I know of a brand new top selling craft beer out there these days. Look at all the beers that I just mentioned. Except for Force Haze, Ranger, Juice Force.
Is that like Space Force?
Something like
Oh,
that.
come
Like
on.
Juice Force.
And Sierra Nevada's big little thing. We had Sierra Nevada on and they were promoting the little things. All of these breweries are promoting beers that are 20, 30 years old themselves. Bell's Two Hearted, Shiner Bock, Boston Beer Co.'s, Sam Adams, Boston Lager. Like, all these beers have been around for so long. Can we see a top beer from not one of these breweries come in to the industry?
I don't know if you can. I think they're in those top numbers because of how much they sell. you can't ask like a local brewery down the street to like beat out one of these guys that sell nationwide. So even if like AB's craft breweries are declining in sales, it's still going to far outpace any of these breweries who distribute like regionally or locally.
Well, maybe not even say, Rheingeist, I think, is probably the best example of a brewery that is growing in size, but doesn't necessarily have the time in the industry compared to these other brands. That's kind of what I'm thinking about is that these breweries that maybe are less than, 10 years old, 15 years old, finally getting their time to shine, or coming back. I mean, remember Brooklyn Brewery used to be huge in the Tommyknocker. Oh my God, I love that beer. Like they were huge, and then, fighting for shelf space in Michigan is almost damn near impossible. Same with Allagash. They kind of, phased back a little bit, but Allagash definitely has some age in it. So Dan, you don't think there's, a brewery within the last 10 to 15 years that have opened that can kind of enter even maybe Kings and Convicts?
Well, I mean, you'd be looking at Ballast Point at that time. Is Ballast Point in the top 30? That is one that possibly could if it wasn't previously.
They were 30. They were 34 brewery wise, but there was no top 30 brand for them. Like,
are they?
New Belgium has 7 of the top 30 selling beers in the country.
Is that with the purchase of Bell's, the combination, or is it just
yes,
New
but
Belgium?
without Bell's, it's 6 of the top 30.
Oh, so Two Hearted is the one that gave him 7.
That's correct.
I mean, yeah, you could see. I feel like Ballast Point would have been higher at one point. What's the other one? Is St. Archer the other big brand Kings and Convicts owns?
I think so, but there is no St. Archer on this list that doesn't involve a mainstay brewery. It does say, which is kind of funny, Monster Energy's Cigar City Heil. That's one of those idiocracy moments in my head where it's like Costco, CVS, Mountain Dew presents Firestone Walker is on here. They're 805. That is a local. They have Boston Beers Sam Adams Variety Pack and Boston Beers Boston Lager, Boston Beers Seasonal, and that's it. And Shinerbach. Sierra Nevada's got 3 on there too.
Well, you mentioned 805. I don't know if it gets all the way out to your part of the country, but it's everywhere out here. I mean, you bought it for me in Las Vegas. It's on tap everywhere you go here in Phoenix. It's pretty wide distributed. To break in, I think you're going to need one of two things. You're going to need one of those brands that are on the top 30 to scale back or close down or stop producing a certain type of beer, or you're going to have to buy one of those brands to do it.
Well, here's Shock Top's down 24% volume-wise.
Wow, I didn't even know they still make that, honestly.
Same with Lagunitas, a little something something. That's down 25%. And Lagunitas IPA is down 25%. So they are losing massive volume to alternative drinks.
When was the last time any of you saw Shock Top in a bar?
I can't remember seeing it in a long time.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
No, I'm going to probably see it tomorrow now that I know I'm looking for it.
Yeah, at the bowling. Yeah, that's where I would expect it.
We have to say when Ken and I go to bowl the 40 frame game tomorrow.
They're going to have Shock Top. They're going to have the new Fat Tire. They're going to have Sam Adams Boston Lager, the new version of that.
Is it like Eastern? Is it like Eastern Europe where it takes forever for things to get there?
What, the bowling alley?
I don't know.
They'll have Yingling,
it is
which is probably I'm going to be drinking. But yeah, if you look at Goose Island's Tropical Beer Hug Double IPA, like that's up 140%. Like these are really drastic
The what? Who's buying Goose Island beer if you're not on an airplane or it's not BCBS?
I mean, probably anywhere that has an AB contract.
That blows my mind. It's just not something you see very often.
I mean, if the beer choice was limited and I wanted a beer and I did not want Budweiser, if it was 312, I'm buying 312.
Oh,
without
same.
a doubt.
Absolutely.
I mean 312 is a solid beer, but yeah, not a lot of people are lining up to buy it anymore. But if it's somewhere at a bar and it's the only good choice, I'm buying. I'll have a couple. So
I think that unless a maybe like a Stone comes out with a new beer that gets a lot of hype, or I mean, Shiner's trying with their Mexican lager Orle, and there was a few other beers that they started to distro out here. I don't see Dogfish Head or Boston Beer coming out with a new beer anytime soon.
And they don't need to. They're fine with what they have. Their main ones now. They don't need to worry about coming out with anything new because people they will buy them. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, but here we're talking about all of these brands that are losing double-digit percentages in volume. They need to fill that up somewhere else. Like, if you're losing 20% of people drinking just regular Boston beers, Sam Adams, like that's your biggest seller. That's not like Twisted Tea. You need to get them to purchase something else, which is why they remastered their beer. And that's why like Fat Tire remastered their beer. Because nobody was drinking Fat Tire. Like everyone was drinking Voodoo Ranger. Nobody gave two shits about Fat Tire. They're like, all right, we might as well change it up and see what's going on.
Have either of you tried the new Fat Tire yet?
I have not. I have
Me
not.
neither.
I still have the 8-year-old beers I bought at that one party store to get through. I finally put some in the fridge after I dusted them off and had to like wash my hands for 5 minutes to get all the
those bottles of Fat Tire might go for a premium now. People looking for the real thing, not this whatever the hell they did to it.
There was a few photos I saw on Twitter, which you could follow us on Twitter at Better on Draft, of a guy who had an old bottle and a new bottle, and you could kind of see the difference between the two and how like much lighter it is and how different it is. But no, I haven't had the opportunity to try it. Then I don't know if I will. Like I might, like, should we get New Belgium on the show? Like I might go out and buy some, but there's so many other beers here, and if I want to, I'll want an amber, I'll go get a Bell's Amber. And if I want to, whatever that beer is, I'll probably go find a local version of that. I think that Boston Beer and Dogfish Head will need to adjust with the times a little bit more. They're focusing a lot on RTDs and seltzers and other areas where they're selling their products, but I still think they need to bring something into the beer game that's new and exciting for beer drinkers. The only one that I can think of that's probably new that might crack the top 10 here soon is Athletic. The Athletic Pale Ale, I think will probably be one of the top selling, beers, probably within the next year or two. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not on.
Are they measuring non-alcoholics with regular beer?
Yes. Yes, they are.
If that's the case, there's a good chance.
Because they're mentioning, like, in these articles, they're mentioning Brewdog's AF, they're mentioning Two Roads, and they're mentioning Athletic. So that's at least three.
I could absolutely see that happening.
And there's a lot of people, like, if you listen to Bart Watson, which we had on the show a couple years ago, talking about how, like, he's a little skeptical about Gen Z, but how Gen Z is not spending the money that millennials are on alcohol as a whole.
Because they're broke.
I mean, that's probably true too. But I think that's something important to go as people age out of drinking and the new people who are coming into drinking aren't, and it's not necessarily even broke. Like they're not buying Busch, Dan. They're not buying anything at all. They're just, they're drinking water. Too much avocado toast.
Avocado toast.
Speaking of avocado toast, Nick, what do you got for an article?
Why? Is it because I'm wearing a green shirt?
I mean, sure, why
Yeah.
not? I was just gonna start calling you avocado toast, like that was the new nickname for you.
That's your new nickname. I like this.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, man. You guys are so gross. Believe I had a hard time trying to find something that was worth talking about today, so I found Thrillist has an article, and I think they slightly repurposed it a little bit because it's St. Patrick's Day, but I think it's still pretty relevant. The top 10 cheapest cities to get beer in the United States, as well as the top 10 most expensive cities in the United States to get beer. So they went to betting.com and they found that they analyzed the average cost of draft beer and bottled beer amongst the top 100 most populated cities in the United States to identify the most and least expensive locations. So starting with the least expensive, so the cheapest. Let's start with you, Dan. Name a major American city, most populated American city that you would think would be in the top 10. And I'll give you a little bit of a hint here. Michigan is not on any of these lists. And the top 10 cheapest is really 14 because they have a tie for some of them.
Okay, so it has to be in the 100 biggest cities. We can't name some middle of nowhere.
No, these are all well-known American cities.
Okay. So it's still going to be some podunk type of thing.
Yeah, it's not going to be Rogers City, Michigan, Dan.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
And there's no Michigan on here. There's not a single Michigan city on here.
So I'm thinking Southwest. God, this is a tough one. So cheapest?
Well, actually, let's just pick either one. You can just pick a city, whether it's cheapest or most expensive. Let's open.
I'll give you one of each. How about that?
Okay, that's fine.
I'll start with the cheapest. Because I feel like it's going to be something in the Midwest.
Okay.
I'm torn for cheapest. I'm going to say either Des Moines, Iowa will be on there, or like a Lincoln, Nebraska will be on there. For most expensive, I'd say Honolulu is probably going to be in the top 5.
What was your first one? The first one on the cheapest, Dan?
I gave you 2. Something like a Des Moines, Iowa, or a Lincoln, Nebraska, somewhere like that, middle of nowhere.
Okay, so Des Moines not on here, but Lincoln, Nebraska is tied for 8th amongst cheapest. $4 for a draft, $5.50 for a bottled beer, and then for Honolulu, it is the 4th most expensive city in the United States.
Doesn't surprise me.
Draft beer $7, bottled $9.
Dan, there's 2 Arizona cities that are on the cheapest. If you want to give those a guess.
2 Arizona, so 2 cheapest.
Yep, 2 cheapest.
So it's got to be out of the Phoenix area. Are we talking like Kingman or?
I don't even think that's a real place, Dan. Try again.
Kingman, Arizona. No?
Yeah, that's.
Fuck, I don't know. Where the hell else?
It's like 12 people there or something.
No, it's about 90 miles south of Las Vegas. It's a pretty big city.
All right.
This first one is the hay shipping capital of the world.
The hay shipping capital of the world. Fuck if I know. What is it?
It's in Maricopa County.
Oh, it doesn't narrow it down.
Is
it Maricopa?
It's southeast of Phoenix.
Is it Queen Creek?
It's a basketball player with the last name Arenas' first name.
Gilbert?
There you go. Gilbert, Arizona. I don't know where that is. Well, I mean, I do.
I highly doubt that's accurate. I've spent a number of nights in Gilbert. Beer is not cheap there. It's one of the biggest, party cities in the area.
What is that, like where Arizona State is or something? Or
no, that's Tempe, but think of it like a downtown Royal Oak.
Oh,
that
really?
Type of area.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that kind of surprises me.
What the other city in Arizona, Dan, tied for 8th with Lincoln, Nebraska, is Glendale.
No, I call horse shit on that.
Call
too.
horse shit on that one. Okay.
That until this year, that was a home of both the Coyotes and the Cardinals. No, beer is not cheap out there.
Okay.
Interesting. I wonder where they pulled their numbers from.
Yeah, I was trying to find that, and unfortunately, the data it didn't really give me any really good sources. Going down the list of cheapest cities, number 1 is Toledo, Ohio, where Ken and I will be going tomorrow afternoon.
Are you going to the bar?
Yeah,
the bar, yes,
the bar
outside the arena.
Yep. El Paso, Texas, number 2. Tulsa, Oklahoma, number 3. Tied for
Tulsa's
4th.
One I thought.
Wichita, Kansas, and Greensboro, North Carolina. We talked about Gilbert, Arizona at number 6. St. Pete in Florida, number 7. We talked about Lincoln and Glendale already, and then tied for 10th in a 5-way tie. Jacksonville, Florida, Newark, New Jersey, Lubbock, Texas, Irving, Texas, and Chesapeake, Virginia. Those are the top 10 cheapest cities for beer.
Wow.
And for most expensive, the Big Apple, number 1, New York City, followed by Los Angeles, San Jose. We talked about Honolulu at number 4. And from there, San Diego, Anaheim, Boston, Mass, Long Beach, California, and then a 3-way tie for 9th, or whatever, because there is no 10th. San Francisco, Seattle, and the nation's capital, Washington, D.C.
Zero surprises on that list, honestly.
Lots of towns in California rounding out the most expensive places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cities in the state of California.
I don't understand how an organization like Thrillist just doesn't ring up someone like Oracle or NCR or Toast and is like, hey, we need some data. Why don't you just give this to us real quick, and then we'll throw an ad for you at the end of our page.
Yeah, do it for free or something like that, or 99%.
Because that information is easily available to any aggregator of those software companies to just be able to pull up. They could easily find where's the most expensive pizza and where's the cheapest ramen, city, dumb shit like that.
You would think they would, unless they're just not giving that information out. That could be too.
Yeah, but there's always an in-kind donation. I mean, for a website like Thrillist that gets a lot of people on their site, you can easily, give free advertisement. But these lists are, between Here and VinePair and shit, these lists are so terrible. I'm not judging. They're fun, yes. They're easy content. They're great to talk about. I'm not judging you, Nick. But they're just so annoying.
And that's why I went, and that's kind of why I went through, because I was reading through it. I'm like, oh, geez. I was, without the justification as to how you reached it, you're right. It is 100% bullshit. I agree with you. I agree with Dan.
But they got all this information from betting.com.
I know. But
I don't know how betting.com aggregates this.
Yeah, I would that's what I would love to know. But I think that's what makes it, that's what makes it fun for us to talk through this, because Dan can sit there and scrutinize this list based on real experience, because he likes to party out in Gilbert, Arizona every once in a while.
I really don't. It's not one of my favorite places. But it's funny. I think about Toledo. I've flown out in and out of the Toledo airport a couple of times over the last year or two. The airport has Yuengling on tap at their bar that's in there, the one spot. And it's $5 for a pint. It's roll up to the fucking airport, get some beer. Yeah. So
I just got to clear TSA and we're good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get my pre-check.
Only one airline flies out of there. So
is it that small of an airport?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. An American just pulled out of it last year.
Oh, wow.
Well, Dan, what's your article for today?
So this actually throws back to what we were talking about with your article, Ken. And this article brings me to a question I want to ask both of you, because I'm curious now. It kind of piqued my interest. But research from Bacardi-owned Martini has revealed record numbers of young adults are switching to low and no alcohol beverages. More than half, at 53%, are looking to reduce their alcohol intake, according to the results. And while customers are not necessarily ditching alcohol, they are switching wines, beers, and spirits for beverages of low and no alcohol category. Just under 50% of UK-based Gen Z and millennials were found to be more likely blenders who switch between low and no drinks and full strength. So throwing back to what we were talking about with your information, Ken, from your news article and this coming out, that they really are starting to look towards these younger generations are looking to low and no alcohol beverages. My question for both of you, and we'll start with you, Ken, when you go to a brewery or a bar, when's the last time you saw someone that wasn't like in our generation at one of these?
Oh, geez. I'm trying to think of the last time I was at I definitely feel on the older side of brewery attendees when I go to a bar itself.
Really?
I feel like there is our generation, I almost feel like, is not at these places. When we went on our trip to Austin and San Antonio, Dan, like the people that were hanging out like at these breweries were either 60 to 65-year-old people or 20 to 25-year-old people.
Maybe I didn't pay attention, so I didn't see the younger people. I saw the people our age or older. And that's a lot of what I see out here, too. It's when I go to somewhere like, I go to a place like the place that has 80-some taps up the street, it's always people my age. It's not, you don't see 20-year-olds. You don't see, 21-year-olds. You see people in their mid-30s and up is who you're seeing.
From what I remember going to these places, like I remember seeing, like when we were at Jester King, it was a bunch of young kids. Aquapon, same, bunch of young kids. When we went to, what was the first place where Kelly Meyer joined us? New Braunfels. That was all older people.
That was all people older than us. Yep.
There was nobody at Live Oak when we went. What other Weathered Souls? There was just that one other guy.
There was one, yeah.
Talk to me about that Sunday. You were there Sunday and it was wall-to-wall packed.
It was wall-to-wall packed. It was all people my age, probably my age. It was all people who were at the Royal Rumble, basically.
Oh, was it
waiting
really?
to go to the airport. Yeah. So it was, I walked in, I was the only one there. By the time I left, there wasn't a seat in there, but it was all people 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and that age. It wasn't, and maybe that's a Sunday afternoon type of thing. Maybe kids aren't going out to the brewery at 1 o'clock on a Sunday because they were out all night, at the club until 2 a.m. But again, it was just all people our age or older. So it really made me bring up the question is how often do you see someone younger? It makes me think last Friday after the show, we went, there's one of those pour your own places. I talk about it from time to time. It's always not as busy as the places around, and it's always older people that are there. It's never, here come a bunch of 21-year-olds looking to pour their own beer. It's always, here come the 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds, like, who want to drink craft beer, which made me think maybe we're just not seeing that generation come into these type of places anymore, like it when we were that age.
And when we went to go see Darude a couple of weeks ago, was there a lot of people like younger than us? There was obviously a lot of younger people there. But
good question.
I mean,
when we were,
but people like us, we're not going to that place every Friday night. We're not. People in their late 30s are not going to a nightclub like Electricity where they sell beer or alcohol.
No, but there was someone there from the, what was it, late 90s, early 2000s. Was that people your age, or were there people younger there for it?
There was definitely people our age was still on the older. We were the older crowd, but there was that whole cheap ticket for a live DJ set of a really prominent, European DJ.
Yeah.
That one everyone knows about, but two, everyone knows because of the meme. And if you actually, I think Vice did like a behind the scenes on his rebirth and touring and stuff, and he's like, I don't care how people find out who I am as long as they do and they listen to my music.
Yeah,
like I don't care that I'm a meme or I'm a joke. People are downloading and listening to my music, and I'm getting a renaissance. So there was definitely a lot of young 20s young 20s in there, and then our age. Like there was no like 30s people. Like you were either like you were either 40 or you were 20 there.
Yeah.
But even when we were at the brewery, like the brewery definitely felt like it was a lot more older people who were at the brewery itself.
Yeah.
Hanging out, eating and drinking, whereas we were the more, it was either that or a much more younger crowd. I don't really, and of course now I'm like trying to think like, am I underaging a lot of people who look just really young because people look young these days?
Too much plastic surgery.
I mean, I'm more like a 30-year-old looks like they're 19 or 20 these days.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was 19, I looked like I was 30.
It's all the hair. So tell about talking about feeling old. I went to see Jerry Cantrell a couple of weeks ago. For those who don't know, Jerry Cantrell, Alice in Chains, guitar player, singer-songwriter for that band. Go to that show. It was all people my age and older. A lot of them were bringing their kids. It's like, holy crap, has grunge, like no one even wants to listen to grunge anymore, especially some of the best, grunge music that was ever written. It's like all older people, like all hanging out. It's like, damn, now I'm really starting to feel old.
Yeah.
I think everything comes though in waves. Like there's going to be probably a new generation here in 5 years that rediscover craft beer. But as craft beer continues to grow more locally, and smaller as opposed to with dreams and aspirations of being, this big production facility, I think it's going to be almost a norm. Like everyone's going to understand that that's your local watering hole. That's your local beer. That's your beer. That's your Reed City beer. That's your Alpena, Michigan beer. That's your Sheboygan beer. And I think that's what we're going to start seeing a lot more is that people, as they age into drinking, they're going to see their hyper local beer as their beer.
Which is a good thing. We talked about that when the show first started. It seemed like everyone was trying to be this big production, getting all this distribution, if you guys recall. It seemed like every brewery, that was their dream. Oh, we want to distribute and this and that. Are you guys noticing that that's not really the case anymore? More places are just trying to be that local or regional place that people come to.
I went to Someday today to check out their soft opening. And they can only seat like 60 people on this brewery on Mac. Like they're not there to have a production facility. They're not there to crank out. I think they have 4 beers on tap and 2 meads. Nice. and I think one of the meads is a hand pull too. So I feel like a lot of places that are opening, look at Joe Walters, formerly of Liberty Street. He's opening up One for All over in Livonia, and that's going to be a brand new brewery, and that's going to be very local. You look at Kingsley, which just opened in Kingsley, Michigan. Do you even know where Kingsley, Michigan is, Nick?
Never heard of it.
I do. I'm going to be checking that out in a couple of weeks.
Kingsley, Michigan.
Yep, that's just south of Traverse City.
Okay.
But these breweries are starting to open with a truly hyper-local focus. They're not opening like Roke or Brew Detroit. Brew Detroit had a whole other plan when they opened, just because they wanted to be a contract brewer too. But you'll never see another Roke again, I don't think.
Probably not.
Coming in guns a-blazing like that. All these small breweries, the Michigan Brewery Map app, folks, if you don't have it yet, go download it. It's free. iOS, Android, you can see all the breweries, including upcoming breweries. And you're going to look at where all these upcoming breweries are, and they're basically in the middle of nowhere for the most part, or they're in beer deserts that need a local watering hole.
Yeah, that isn't your dive bar selling Coors Light, Busch Light, that sort of thing. Especially these northern Michigan towns. Like, it's good to hear Kingsley's getting a brewery, because before that, it would be that kind of thing where, I can go somewhere and get some Busch Light, Bud Light, Coors Light, that sort of thing. So it's really nice to see places getting options other than that for the people up there.
Yeah, I'm bringing up the app right now, and like Macasta is getting a brewery. Battle Creek's getting another one. Vicksburg's getting one. Plainwell's getting one. Cadillac's getting one. So like all these breweries, Lake Leelanau is getting a brewery here upcoming. So there's a lot of breweries over in Fort Gratiot.
Up in the thumb?
Yeah, up in the thumb. There's plenty of places. Linden is getting its own brewery. Places that will finally get a brewery that will service the local industry. They're not going to be distroing. They're not going to be, and we're seeing breweries that, you know, kind of had their hand forced to distro due to COVID, like Faison, or
do they distro?
Yeah, Faison does distro. I see their cans at Wendy was here to tell me the big store in Canton. They're that huge store in Canton that I just can't think of the name of. Super Fine Wine. Like I'll see cans over there. I'll see cans of them at Metropolitan or 8 Degrees. So yeah, they definitely distro, and it's not big. Like they don't distro more than like southeastern Michigan. But that's the same with like Barrel and Beam was distroing all over the state. So it's finding the right path for a brewery is going to be key, but I feel like for the younger generations, Gen Z is still aging into drinking age anyways. They're not, they're not fully drinking age. Like I think probably by the tail end of Gen Z, my guess is that there'll be enough local breweries to where people will know what their local brewery is. I mean, look at what Loaded Dice is doing over in Troy. They get a lot of people in Troy over there because that's their brewery. That's the Troy Brewery. There's no other brewery. Just there's, what do you call it? Granite City, but nobody gives two shits about Granite City.
No, it's funny. I didn't even know Loaded Dice was there. It's obviously after it opened up after I left there. That basically a beer desert without them. So you think about what's over in that area, but yeah, you have Granite City, and then you have all these, you know, corporate locations, or dive bars, basically. So that
especially that area, like unless you were getting into Royal Oak, which Royal Oak kind of dissipated a little bit. You have the Rob, you have Lily's, and that's it. In Royal Oak itself, you have Jolly Pumpkin now instead of Boston. But then you go down to Ferndale and the Wab's gone. Now it's at B Nectar. The Wab hardware is at B Nectar. You have Urban Rest, you have Brooks. But like that more east area, there's no beer there until again, Loaded Dice came in, Cadillac Straits came in. And it kind of fit that area of between Coonan, Dragon Mead and Royal Oak Ferndale. Like you needed something there that just was never there. I know we're talking hyper local, folks. I'm truly sorry. We're the moral of the story is that you're going to start seeing a lot of, and it doesn't even have to be a big city. It has to just be a city that can sustain one bar, can sustain one brewery.
That's true.
And you know what might be good to start seeing is that if there is relaxing laws to where these bars could potentially start brewing their own beer. Even if they get like a 1 gallon setup and they just make their own beer, like that's I mean, we're going back to like what the 1800s were here in the U.S., where there was 6,000 breweries and each brewery was a bar that made their own beer.
10,000 breweries with their like 1 gallon or whatever the fuck they did back then.
Yeah, but you could easily set up a 1-barrel system, brew your own beer, kind of like MD's used to do, or Bilbo's Bilbo's has a much bigger site, but Bilbo's is no longer brewing.
Nano breweries were a thing for a moment. I don't know if they still are, but that we could see that come back, I think, for sure.
I mean, the terminology is there. I think a lot of things got clouded when the craft beer boom hit, and there was just so much like red tape, rules and regulations, because like here in Michigan there's brew pubs, breweries, and like brewing facilities, I think is the big one, or microbrewery. There's brewery, which is the big ones, and microbrewery, which is the small ones. And when I say big ones, I literally just mean Bell's and Founders. But like all those different licenses, then we have all those laws that use those legal license rules to where if you create different licenses, like a nano brewery license, which we don't have in Michigan, you would have to create, reset a bunch of laws that talk about microbreweries or breweries. With Michigan, at least, because self-distro has changed a lot, now these places could, be a brewery in a city and work in collaboration with a local bar. All right, we're going to have 10 taps on. Can we get 2 at your bar? You can go and sell it. We can sell it at the same price and everyone's happy. But I think that's the way we see craft beer survive 5 years from now is that hyper local, which we've talked about on this show, becomes this industry standard that brings in, because as the newer kids grow up, we are becoming even bigger homers than we used to be.
Eventually, these small breweries that are local will eventually become the new hole in the wall bars, basically.
Yeah, but when I say
for our generation that goes to them.
Yeah, like gone will be the days of the Gathering Place or the Madison Club.
Madison.
Gone is the Madison Club. I don't know if that'll ever die.
The Bronx down like in Midtown Detroit.
Dan, when was someone our age that wasn't us at the Madison Club?
Actually, I just got a text from someone who was there last week, sending pictures. It's like, oh boy.
But look
they're having 50s night or something tonight there too.
50s night?
Yeah.
Are they gonna be listening to Chuck Berry all night? Not that I would complain. Marvin Berry.
Thank you, Nick, for the Back to the Future reference. I think that's gonna do it before this.
As long as someone got it. Good, because I'm about to see Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue right now. The 16 beating the 1 right now.
Are they actually?
They're like literally. It's 12 and a half seconds left. Fairleigh Dickinson's up by 3. Purdue just shoots airball and
no!
And Purdue just fouled 7.6 left. It'll be the second time in history that it happens.
Yeah, and hopefully, you bet $100 on all the underdogs.
I want to see everyone's bracket get busted.
It got busted with Arizona living up to expectations.
Oh, so with
everyone's bracket
or whatever
gone with Princeton.
All right, that's going to do it for the craft beer news and the craft beer podcast. My name is Ken for Nick and Dan. Wendy, of course, who is on a trip right now, wasn't able to make it tonight. We appreciate you listening. We will be back next week, I believe. We may have a Friday show that is tentative, but if not, we are going to be having a Sunday afternoon show with McKellar. Mikkel is going to be joining us onto the show. So that is going to be Sunday at noon, but just in case, we may have a Friday show, so stay tuned. And stay tuned for March Draftness, thinking about March Madness, the fake shit that you guys are talking about. March Draftness, the real bracket. My bracket is still not busted. I still have all 4 of my breweries making it. So that is going to do it. Stay tuned to our Facebook page to vote in March Draftness. And no matter what you think of your beer, we think it's better on draft. Have a good night.